Our next guest won ITV's The X Factor in 2009 and has since gone on to sell a whopping 2 million records, including 4 top 10 albums. This October, he heads back out on the road for a huge celebration of George Michael's life called Freedom, and George Michael most certainly appears in our next guest's TV journey. I'd love to welcome him to Telly Talks. It's Joe McElderry.
Hello.
Well, Joe, I mean, you've gone on to tour your own music and also appear in musicals like Joseph. Do you have any time to watch telly when you're on the road?
Well, it's a lot of catch-up and it's a lot of, like, streaming platforms, obviously. But you're relying on, obviously, hotel Wi-Fi and all of them kind of things. But I do watch a lot of Real Housewives on tour. I'm a little bit obsessed with Real Housewives, so that's me. And you've always got loads to catch up on, and it's like when you've done a show, you want something that you don't really have to concentrate on. So I can just watch a load of the housewives having a fight and just it's good wind down after the tour.
Do you have a preference? Which Real Housewives do you prefer?
Well, I actually watch pretty much every franchise.
Yeah.
I'm that obsessed. But I would say I love Real Housewives of New York, and I also love top 3, Beverly Hills, New York, and Atlanta.
You know what we need now is a Real Housewives of Tyneside.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine that?
Only like if I can be on it, though. I want to be on it.
Oh, you'd be good. Wouldn't he be good on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I got to meet one of them. I was in Coachella a couple of weeks back, and I spotted one of the Real Housewives' husbands, and I'm that obsessed. I was like, Stop, there's Real Housewives in the vicinity. I've seen one of the husbands. And I turned round and Cal Richards was stood at the bar. Wow. And I went straight over and was like, I'm sorry, I never ask anyone for a picture. And I went over and was like, can I get a picture, please? I was a real fangirl.
I mean, you perform with some pretty big stars, George Michael being one of them, but it's really, your crutch is Desperate Housewives.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't believe you haven't had your picture taken with anyone more famous than that. Do you really not? Did you just think that's just not the done thing to go and have a selfie with a celebrity?
I've had like pictures taken with people like in work situations where they like get together, get a picture for a press shot or something. But I don't know. I just always find because I'm very fortunate to have had people ask me to do that. Then I always kind of just don't want to impose on other people. Do you know what I mean? So and it's always a bit awkward. It's always a bit awkward if it's a work situation as well, and then you're screaming like a fangirl. I did chase after Beyonce once, actually. I tell a lie. But
did you manage to escape your chase? Did you manage to get away?
It was in Hyde Park, and she was there to support.
She was going for a jog.
No, she was. It was Jay-Z was playing Hyde Park, and I had tickets. Like I got invited to this whatever night it was. I think it might have been Wireless Festival, and again, I was like, she's in the vicinity, she's here somewhere. But she did say hello to us, but we didn't get a picture.
Wow, that's amazing enough that she said hello.
Lovely, yeah. I mean, she didn't have a choice. I was chasing after her.
You'd cornered her. Yeah. Yes. All there was a corner of two metal fences, barbed wire.
And a lot of security guards be like, get this crazy person away from her.
And a Joe McElderry hungry for a greeting.
Just when he whipped the taser out, they got really worried.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get started then, Joe. Could you introduce your first telly pick, please?
My first telly pick is Big Brother. And Nadia being on Big Brother and winning the show, which was actually probably I would say my favourite series of nearly any Big Brother, actually.
Don't give me... Okay, what time is it? Give me the time, please. Give me the time right now.
Nadia, please try and take a moment to calm down.
I've lost my dignity. I've lost my respect. I've lost my God. I've lost it all. I don't want to lose anymore, Big Brother. I really do not want to lose anymore. Do you know what? I want to leave, so clock the time, arrange everything, and I'm living here on grounds because an old, like 20 years ago guy, okay? An old man.
Why did you choose this particular clip?
I think I remember when she won, I remember how overwhelmed she was with it all, and I think it was such a beautiful moment. You know, we'd hardly ever seen anything like that on television. And I remember it being a really important topic of conversation. I was still quite young at the time. And obviously the whole kind of storyline of her going through that and telling the other housemates and explaining things and going through all of those kind of struggles with all of that was it was not only fascinating to watch, but such a major kind of moment in television.
Well, I mean, we'll get on to Corrie a little bit later, and we might talk about Hayley Cropper, but as a young person watching Big Brother, was that probably the first trans person you'd seen on TV?
Absolutely. And the first kind of conversations of that I'd ever seen. So I remember it being such an important moment.
And maybe quite a good template for what you'd go through as an LGBT person a bit later on.
Yeah, but obviously at the time, I had no idea what was coming my way with the whole X Factor thing, because I was young. I think, was that 2006? I think that series was. So I probably would have been about maybe 11 or 12, I think I was at the time. I was very young, but I still vividly remember watching it. And I watched it with my mum as well. We used to watch Big Brother. So we watched that together. So I always I think it was such a lovely moment in television, actually.
What I remember about that was the fact that obviously Nadia was trans, but we didn't even have the phrase in common use back then, trans, did we?
No.
So it was such a new thing that we didn't even know how to almost describe what we were watching in a weird way, whereas these days we would, which is quite interesting, isn't it? That was almost like the first time that we'd seen something like that, and it was perhaps the beginning of a national awakening to the fact that, well, here's a section of community we haven't seen before.
And also just like just a dialogue and an open conversation of just things in general, of people being able to say how they feel and share who they are and being proud of that. And I think, you know, things like those moments do really show us how far we have actually come as well. It's hard sometimes when you see all the negativity, you know, especially on social media still now, and you still hear absolute horror stories of people going through such struggles. But it does show you on the flip side of that we have come a very long way, which is brilliant.
And I think this show's taught us a lot that these moments have often come, as we've talked about earlier today, on reality TV, where there's no script, there's often no audience, and there's an opportunity for things to be talked about in an organic way and in a natural way.
Yeah. And that's the best way. The best way is people's personal experiences and people sharing their experiences. It's real life.
Did you ever apply to go on BB?
No.
Is it just not your thing? Because I'm guessing you're the sort of person who, you know, you've got an obvious talent. You don't want to be famous for the sake of being famous. You want to just show off your talent, and if fame comes with that, then fair enough. Is that a fair assessment?
I mean, to be honest with you, I love Big Brother, and I watched every single series. I was addicted to it. But the thing that would put me off would be just being stuck in a house for that long. I'd be like a caged animal. So that was why I would never have been able to do it. But as a spectator, to watch it, it was fantastic. I'm sure I was asked at some point to do Celebrity Big Brother. At some point, quite a few years back. And one of the reasons I'm sure I did. You know, you sometimes get lost in these things of like, I'm sure there was a conversation where somebody said, did you want to do it? There's been maybe I'm wrong, but I'm sure there was. And I was like, I couldn't be in a house. Well, even the Celebrity one, that's only 3 weeks, isn't it? But it wouldn't be for me. I love watching it, but I couldn't be stuck in a house.
I'm interested in this because obviously X Factor's a TV talent contest, but sometimes the terms are used interchangeably in this sort of say reality TV contest or reality TV.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, for someone who's been on it, would you say it was a bit like a reality TV contest?
I mean, I see it's like a pantomime on television. You know, everybody's kind of a character, but that's the same with the likes of like Strictly and things like that. If you watch these shows, everybody's kind of there to play the part of each thing. It's like a chess puzzle, you know. But it is a reality TV show, definitely, because you know we didn't have cameras in the house when we did X Factor, but pretty much every other work and waking moment that you're doing stuff, you've got a camera behind you following you the whole time. The only time we didn't was on a night time, really, in the house. So to us, although you don't get to see all of that footage, we are filming pretty much 15 hours a day.
And have you ever imagined what your life would be like now if you hadn't have been on X Factor? What would Joe be doing right now, do you think?
Well, I mean, I would hope that like I would have had an opportunity to get into the industry a different way as well. But if not, I always wanted to be a paramedic.
Wow.
Yeah. So I actually went to college to do A-levels. Then I realised I wasn't that academic. But I was kind of in the process of just before X Factor, and then I'd kind of dropped out of A-level college, went to do performing arts, and then just thought, oh, do you know what? I'm going to apply for the X Factor and see what happens. But Maybe I would have been a paramedic, a singing paramedic, eh?
Wow. Can you imagine
Singing
that?
paramedic.
Joe rocks up, singing his little heart out, punctures your collapsed lung, drains off some fluid.
I did my work experience in a hospital and everything. Like, I was always fascinated by hospitals and medicine and everything as a child. So that was kind of me. I think I also would have been, I feel like I would have been a good cabin crew as well.
Wow.
Maybe I would have done that. I don't know.
Can you do a cabin doors cross check?
To manual.
All right, stop now before this gets any further. Okay. But you've obviously got a lot of positive, happy memories of X Factor, and obviously people have come forward and say that they have negative and sort of unhappy memories of X Factor. Can you understand how other people have had? I mean, did you see or witness anything that makes you realise not everything was good behind the scenes on X Factor?
But I think in any work situation and any kind of job, is every situation in a work situation always the most positive experience? No. My experience on the show was very positive, but let's be honest, the world of show business and the music industry it can be quite a toxic place to work in, you know. And you know, I think things are changing, and I think aftercare on reality television shows is getting a lot better than it was. I still think there's a long way to go with it, but I think for me, I actually felt we lived in such a bubble on the show, and I was so young. I turned 18 on the show, so my naivety at that time kind of almost protected us in a way that I was just so excited to be there. I think for me, the main issues I had were after the show was kind of trying to find your place in such a fast-paced, like brutal industry, and finding your feet, and also. I was 18, I wasn't really an adult yet, and grown into an adult, and I'm 31 now. So, like, it's took a long time to kind of, like, learn about the industry and the kind of, the ups and downs that come with it. It's a full-on industry, you know, it can be a bit mental at times.
I'm curious, did you ever have a crush on any of your co-stars on the X Factor?
No, I didn't actually.
I can't remember who was on in your year. I just remember you, Joe.
No, you're lies.
Ollie Murs, hello.
Ollie Murs, Stacey Solomon,
right.
Jedward. Who else did we have? Daniel Johnson, Lucy Jones. We had a really good year, to be fair.
You had a vintage year. Your year have consistently worked pretty much the names you've mentioned. I mean, especially Lucy Jones, you know, in the
Lucy's
West End.
Fantastic.
You know, have consistently worked since the show ended, which is a lot more than can be said for a lot of contestants before you and a lot of contestants after you. What do you think? Why?
If I knew that answer, I wish I did know that answer, because I think a lot of the time it's a kind of combination of being at the right place at the right time, always a bit of hard work, but also just lucky that opportunities come along your way and grabbing those opportunities. And that's certainly what I've done. You know, I've kind of ran with many of the opportunities that have come and just used them as stepping stones to the next part of my career. But I think also it helps that our year was probably one of the most watched years. I think there was them 3 years around 2009. I think the One Direction year after that, the year before us, there was like 4 series where it was like the peak viewing figures that they'd ever had. So that obviously always helps as well, because you're reaching more and more people. But I don't know. I don't know, because when people used to ask me back in the day, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I just used to say, I still want to be doing it. I didn't have any kind of major big plan and like, this is where I'm going to be in 10 years. I've just kind of, here we are, and I'm 31.
Do you ever slightly resent the huge success that Ollie Murs has gone on and achieved? Or are you pleased as punch for him?
I'm pleased for anyone on the show. I think there's like, for some reason with X Factor, there's this like narrative that like everybody has to be compared to each other and like pitted against each other.
But I suppose it's a competitive show, isn't it? Is it as a viewer you're made to feel a bit like that?
I suppose so, but then you've got to think like do you kind of compete with anybody in your work situation like every day?
Yes.
Do you?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think
so like that sits and eats you up every day, and like you're like, I've got to be better than them, I've got to be more successful than them.
I think it's probably more subtle and constant than that. But the difference I would say with X Factor is that you have that intense period of 4 months where you go from being, excuse the pun, your average Joe on the street,
to being
Christmas #1 and literally an overnight star. It's a much more intense period.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting though. It's very interesting to see the process you went through.
To answer your question, no, I'm too busy concentrating on myself first of all, but I wish everybody else on the show always the best of luck.
More Telly picks from Joe McElderry coming up.
Telly Talks, Virgin Radio Pride.
You're listening to Telly Talks on Virgin Radio Pride. We're here with singer and songwriter Joe McElderry going through his top Telly picks. Joe, what a brilliant first pick. We could have spoke about it for the next 5 hours, but I want to get to this one. Please tell us what it is.
This is the Strictly Come Dancing same-sex pairing.
This was a hugely significant moment. Johannes and John dancing together on BBC One prime time. What did it mean to you?
I think it's visibility, isn't it? It's visibility on television. And my first thought is, I'm out now. I'm proud of who I am. But I thought of like young kids that'll be watching that with their families and how comfortable that would have made somebody, sitting on their sofa thinking, well, am I attracted to a man? Is that like, am I allowed to feel that way? And it instantly, that just by having that on television, that answers all of their questions in their mind, that it's okay and it's fantastic and it's fabulous. Do you know what I mean?
And would you like to go on Strictly Come Dancing? Is that something you could see yourself doing?
I would love to do Strictly.
Have you been asked?
There's been conversations in the past, but it's, the world of kind of television and all of them things, it's always like a bit of back and forwards with it all. There has been conversations, but I, honestly, in my head, I think that I dance like Beyonce. That's probably not the case, but I would still be entertaining, I'm sure.
And of course, if you were on it, which pro would you dance with?
Who would I want? Shall I tell you who I do love, who I actually have been on a few nights out with, and he is absolutely fantastic, and it's Ali Ash.
Ali Ash. Well, he's quit this year, hasn't he?
Oh, has he quit?
Yeah, because you didn't sign up in time.
That's why.
He's free now. You can dance with him all you like.
But he is very handsome.
Just that pesky wife in the way.
Oh gosh, he is a fan favourite though, isn't he?
He is very much so.
And do you know what? We've been on a couple of nights out where I've bumped into him and Jeanette, and we've had so much fun. They are just such a lovely couple.
This isn't a Beyonce situation again when you're chasing him down the road. Hyde Park, a selfie.
So yes, I'd probably pick Ali Ash.
Yeah.
Your trouble is, Joe, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, is you win everything. Well, like you won X Factor, you won Pop Star to Opera Star, and I'm right in thinking you won The Jump when you were on it as well.
Yes.
The thing is, if you went to Strictly, you might as well get the glitter ball now. This is the trouble.
This is the pressure, though. You see, if I ever do another reality TV show, everyone's going to be like, "Oh well, you didn't win that one." If I didn't,
how good are you at baking?
Dreadful.
Oh, brilliant. Let's sign you up.
Absolutely dreadful.
But you'll end up winning that as well. This is the trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I think, do you know what I think it is, though? I think when you've been on a show like X Factor, people underestimate what it's like being on a reality television show and what that entails. And even like a lot of people who work in the industry who've never filmed a reality TV show before, they get into those situations and they're like, oh my God, this is like something I've never experienced before. X Factor kind of allows you to just go into them situations and just you're in there, you're in the game and you're ready to go.
Well, it must have taught you huge resilience because at barely 18 you're in a situation every week where your career could either carry on or things could come to a halt.
Definitely.
Not saying it couldn't get started again, but it's a lot of jeopardy, isn't it?
Yeah, all the time. And they love that word as well, jeopardy. You have a jeopardy every week.
Well, that was another great pick. What's up next?
Up next is Coronation Street, the Todd Grimshaw storyline.
I care about you. And you care about me. You know you do.
I wish I'd never met you. Everything was fine until then. I want this. I want a stable relationship. I want kids.
But you want this more.
So was watching Corrie a family thing when you were growing up?
Yes. I think Corrie's a very northern thing as well.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. So I used to watch it all the time. I used to watch it with my grandma. And I used to also, as I got older, I used to watch it on my own as well.
I mean, and what was life like for you growing up in South Shields where you did grow up?
I had a fabulous childhood and loved I had a very, very easy childhood. It was just like, if you could describe a childhood of just kind of peace and tranquility and just everything being okay, that was my childhood. I was very, very lucky, actually.
And did you know that you yourself were gay, say, before the age of 18? And would you have been able to have said that in South Shields at that time?
I think it's funny, isn't it? Because I think now I would say, yes, I did know. But I think at the time, you go through those kind of feelings of like, does everybody feel like this? Am I supposed to be attracted to a man? Or now when I think back of moments, I realise that it was an attraction to a man. But I think at the time, I couldn't quite piece that together in my head or make sense of, is this what every kind of child goes through as they're getting older? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
I think that would make sense to like all our listeners on this.
Yeah.
What's so nice about hearing that, which kind of makes me pine for that childhood, is there wasn't this desperate need to know, it sounds like.
No, not at all. And my mum and dad separated when I was very young, but my mum and dad both worked with young kids, and my dad then went to be a probation officer, and then my mum was a youth and community worker. So they were used to kind of being around kids and like having those kind of important conversations. And my mum's a trained counsellor, so it was always an open dialogue as well. My mum always said, if one day you decide that you want to go out with a man, that's totally fine. So I knew all of those things. It still doesn't make it easier. I think it's always lovely to know that that that's going to be okay. But I think she had those conversations. Then you do that embarrassed child thing. What are you talking about? No, don't be silly, like blah, blah, blah. But it was like, if I could have had a textbook kind of family situation of everything being okay, I did have that, which I was very lucky to have that.
That's why shows like Corrie, I'd argue, are quite interesting, because what they show are regular people in regular backgrounds, like Weatherfield, or it could be South Shields, it could be Leeds, could be anywhere, and they're living out these lives, love, passion, all those things, and particularly for gay viewers watching gay love stories unfolding in that kind of environment, it has extra meaning, doesn't it?
Totally.
Because finally you go, hang on, and you make a connection between what you see and what you're feeling right there.
100%.
Did you have that kind of feeling when you were watching this on Corrie?
Yeah, and I think it's also as well, it's important for family members to see that, because it's just as important for them to see that and see that that's a normal thing for somebody to feel, because that I don't know about anybody else, and I'm just speaking from personal experience, but the one thing you worry about the most is what your family think. It's the first thing you think of,
And often our mums. For me, it's the mums, isn't it?
Yeah. And so, like a show like that, like what you're saying, it's so important. And also, I think it's important to see as well, when you come from a small town, it's very much a kind of a small town mentality of like everybody knows everyone, and and that adds to that pressure as well. We all come to London. I don't live here, but I spend a lot of time here, and you see so many people from all different walks of life, and sometimes you don't always see that in a small town. So when you live there, you think that that's the be all and end all, and everybody in this town's going to care, and it's going to be outrage, and then you step outside of that one, you're like, oh, okay. Like, there's more people like me,
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of soaps, I mean, is this your next challenge? Do you think, you've done the jump and Strictly, would you ever go into acting?
Yeah, I mean, I reckon I could be a good landlord of the Queen Vic or something, couldn't I? Get out of my pub.
Well, actually, Jodie Prenger recently has just signed up to be in Coronation Street.
Oh, I love Jodie.
Yeah, so
that's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, just very, very recently.
She'd make a fabulous landlady.
Yeah,
she'd be brilliant.
I mean, if they ever do a soap opera in Newcastle, you'd be a shoe-in, wouldn't you? you? I mean,
I hope so.
They'd better. Or Real Housewives of Tyneside.
Yes. Do you want to be my agent?
Johnny needs to create the shows first.
It'd be the first thing he's good at, though.
Wow. Shit.
Yes.
Wow.
Cheery me. Anyway,
We'll be back with more from Joe McElderry on Virgin Radio Pride.
welcome back to Telly Talks on Virgin Radio Pride. Joe McElderry is our guest today, and he's picked some brilliant Telly moments. What else is on your list, Joe?
This, one of my ultimate favourites, Will and Grace.
Tell me that... Over there, honey. The slob in the dark glasses.
Are you sure that's her?
Axel, if you are not going to finish that, Mummy will. All right? Very well, then. It's mine.
When is she going to come up for air? And she, I mean, my God, oh, Anastasia, this is the best gift you've ever given me.
What was it about Will and Grace that you love so much, Joe?
I just loved the dynamic, first of all of the characters, and I just remember thinking when I first watched Will and Grace, I remember thinking, how much fun would it be to live in that apartment? You know, just all of that hustle and bustle going on. Every time the door flung open, you got like a camp routine from Jack McFarland. Then Karen would come in with the fabulous outfits. It was, I don't know, from the minute I saw that show, and again, me and Mum used to watch that all the time, and I would then go and imitate Karen Walker after watching the episode.
Oh my gosh, I mean, if that wasn't a prelude to your coming out.
I know. I did actually once in Benidorm. We went to Benidorm on a family holiday, and they had a wig shop. You know, like, they sell them like ponytails that you can attach to the back of the caps and things. And I actually got my cousin. I was like, "Can you dress us up as Karen Walker?" How nobody knew, and she walked us around the hotel dressed as Karen Walker.
Right, we've got to get that photo to put out with this show.
I had like what I can only describe as like the kind of glasses that Anastasia wears, you know, like the pink rose tinted glasses kind of style, and then a big updo thing and a fur coat. And she was at a date, wandered down to the breakfast hall, and I think I did. Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Oh, you did a great job of hiding your sexuality there. But you're not the first person to pick this. This is the interesting thing. Another guest said that the show made a real difference to them. And partly they were saying that because Will was kind of what you call, I don't know, a straight-laced man. You know, he was a gay man, proud, but he wasn't brazen. And did that make a difference for you? Because you had four very different characters all within that gay orbit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? For me, that was what I loved about the show. Was that was that what you liked about it too?
Yeah, but I also think it was done with such it was like even the jokes about them being gay was done with such warmth and so cleverly written that it was just it was almost like they kind of were humouring themselves as well, like as the characters, which kind of just added to that kind of, again, this is so normal, like it's all great and this is the world that you can live in and it'll be fabulous. And I think at the time, obviously, I didn't realise that was probably why I connected with it so much. But now, as you see it as an adult, like you're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
And you also mentioned Beverly Leslie as well. Yes. Can you explain to our listeners who Beverly Leslie was? Beverly
Leslie is he was like the rich kind of arch nemesis of Karen Walker.
He was kind of like the short, stumpy.
Yeah, he did Big Brother, didn't he? The guy who Leslie Jordan. Yes.
He did. Yeah. But he was a great. There were so many great characters on the show. Like not just the central four, but then they had little spin-offs. You remember Gracie's mum?
Yes, Debbie
Reynolds. God rest her soul. Yeah, she was fantastic on it, wasn't she?
And also think of the pop icons that they had on there as cameos: J-Lo, Britney, Madonna.
Yeah,
Cher.
Oh, she was on it. She was on it twice. That's how camp it was.
It was brilliant. It was honestly. I still can. I've got all of those shows, and I think I've still. I mean, obviously, I don't use a video player now, but I've still got all of the videos that I bought of I ordered them box sets.
Yeah.
And I can watch it all day long. I love it so much.
I think it's really interesting as well. There were lots of shows around that time that were either new kind of gay inverted comma shows, or they had that sort of sensibility to it. You know, you had like Sex in the City, Queer as Folk. They all kind of emerged around about the late 90s. But what was it about this that you liked more than those other shows, sort of thing? Do you think there was a gentleness, a comedy to it that you liked?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like, for me, like, you saw those kind of strong women with both Jack and Will. They both had these, like, female sidekicks next to them, and I think, you know, we've all got friends like that, you know, like now I'm very lucky that I do have friends like that when you're with them, it's just like this absolute, just fabulous kind of fantastic, fun, camp, over the top, laughing, imitating each other, all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean, what, you two are laughing? Do you not have them friends?
No. No, we are those friends.
We are those friends to each other.
That's good.
Yeah.
But how important is it to have that, you know?
Yeah. I'm very much the Will to Benji's Grace.
So neither of you are Karen Walker.
Well,
we know a few Karen Walkers.
We'll be back with Joe McElderry's final top telly pick.
Telly Talks, Virgin Radio Pride.
Unfortunately, Joe, we've come to your final Telly Talks pick on Virgin Radio Pride, and we're ending with a huge and seminal reality TV moment. Yes. What is it?
This is Will Young winning Pop Idol.
Of Pop Idol 2002 is Will!
Now, I remember this so vividly. I think just months after it, I sung a Will Young song at my auntie's wedding. It was such a huge cultural moment.
Huge.
What did it mean to you?
Well, I remember, I was still at school at the time, and I remember the week before the final of this show, everyone was like, who are you voting for? Is it Will or is it Gareth? And everybody at home, I remember, I think we sat at my uncle's house. He had it on a big telly. And half the family wanted Gareth to win, half the family wanted Will Young to win. I remember it being like such a big deal. People were rowing in the kitchen about it. No, it should be this one. But I remember it was such a fantastic moment. And obviously, little did I know I was going to be in a similar situation in, well, probably about 15 years later after that. So, yeah, amazing.
And who are you behind? Sorry, you're going to ask the same question there, weren't you, Benj? But who are you behind?
I did want Will Young to win.
Why?
Because I just thought his voice was fantastic, and I loved his voice, and I thought Gareth was great as well. I do have to say that, because I actually know Gareth as well. I know I've met them both; they're both lovely. But I did want Will to win. He was very talented, and he put Simon Cowell in his place. Anyone that can put Simon Cowell in their place deserves to win a talent show.
And when you meet people that have been on TV talent shows, do you ever compare notes and experiences? Because it's a very unique thing that only a few people in this country will go through.
Yeah, I think I have spoken to other people about the shows. I've never spoken to Will or Gareth about that, but I do think you just have an understanding amongst each other of what everybody went through, because it is, I've done some pretty incredible things like since X Factor that have been amazing, and I've worked on schedules and really like kind of grueling schedules, but I'm yet to find a job or something that ever will match to the intensity of that show, because I think it teaches you so much in such a short space of time, and it's like an experience like no other. Like, it is not for the faint-hearted.
And I mean, talking about X Factor, I have to mention you singing with George Michael in the final. Obviously, he's not with us anymore. But what was that like? Did you realise how important it was at the time? You were so young.
I mean, I did know, because my mum was the biggest George Michael fan. So I grew up listening to all of his music and was obsessed with him as well, through kind of her love of it always being playing in the house. And they didn't. So on the when you get through the final, on the next day, on a Monday, you go to the studio and they give out the songs and everything. So on the Monday, they'd said to Stacey and Ollie, right, we've got your duet partners. Robbie Williams was singing with Ollie. Michael Bublé was coming on to sing with Stacey, and they said, we haven't got yours down yet, Joe. And there's me thinking, that's because nobody wants to sing with me. No, but genuinely, because I was like, well, why have they got duet partners and I haven't? And it went on and on and on all week. Little did I know they were obviously negotiating to try and get George Michael on the show. And I think as well, what is important to say, at that time, to have somebody of that level of musical kind of, he was a musical icon, And, you know, X Factor kind of had its lovers, but it also had its haters in terms of people in the music industry. It was a massive deal to get somebody like George Michael on the show. And I just remember I found out at midnight on the Thursday before the final, one of the producers called and said, listen, we've managed to secure it. He's coming on the show. You're going to rehearse with him on Saturday. I rang my mum, and my mum was like, there's no way. She was like, there's no way he is coming on the show to sing with you. She was like, I just can't even believe that'll be happening. It was an incredible moment, and he was so lovely as well.
Did you ever see him after that moment?
Do you know what? One of my actual biggest regrets is that he invited me and Cheryl out for dinner the week after I won. We were going to meet up, but I was in the middle of that whole Rage Against the Machine chart battle promotion thing, and I was literally flying here, there and everywhere. And the one day that we could do, the schedule ended up changing. That there was somewhere up in Scotland or somewhere doing some sort of promotional thing, and we never got to have that dinner. But I imagine that would have been like one of those moments that you would have always remembered. But he did invite. We had a lovely cup of tea in his Winnebago dressing room outside of Fountain Studios in Wembley. Me, him, and Cheryl. And I just remember sat there as an 18-year-old. And he was in his dressing gown, Cheryl was in her dressing gown, and I was in mine. Everyone's getting ready for the show. And we just sat having a cup of tea. And I remember just being sat there thinking, what is my life? Like, this is just crazy. And he was so lovely and gives some great advice about the industry.
You must not being able to do that dinner, though. That must be like, when you look back, is that not like one of the biggest regrets of your life? I know you couldn't have done anything about it.
Yeah.
If you could have turned back time with a click of a finger, would you do that? Would you go back and
I would
have dinner?
I just think to sit at a dinner table with somebody with who's had that much success, but also so talented and was so lovely. I have to say, one of the most humble, down to earth people that I've ever met. And I've met a lot of people, some who could probably get away with being badly behaved because they're so talented, and some who definitely couldn't. And I would say he probably could have gotten away with being really horrible, and I still would have loved him. But he was incredible. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met.
Well, I think it's just worth mentioning at this point that you will get a huge chance to celebrate his life,
yes,
won't you, in October, because you're heading out on tour.
Yes, we're going out on the Freedom Tour to celebrate all of the music of George Michael, which we're going all over the UK through October, and I'm really excited. I'm thrilled to be doing it, and just so much incredible music, and important to see as well the things that he did for the community as well, by coming out, and also suffered a lot of negativity in his career because of it, and kind of paved the way for a lot of people. So I'm really excited to celebrate the fantastic music that he created for this world.
Just before we let you go, Joe, I wanted to ask you, X Factor was axed last year.
Yes.
How did you feel when you heard that news? Such a big part of your career.
I think it was ready for a break. I do think it was ready for a break. But I'm sure it'll come back in some way, shape or form. I love my time on the show, and it's given me an incredible career. It was 13, it's nearly 14 years ago now. So I would never have a bad thing to say about the show, and I'm sure it'll be back in some way, shape or form.
But do you think it would have to come back in a more soft form, shall we say? I mean, Louis Walsh recently said that it's too woke, our current age, to have X Factor in its more brutal form, like as it was perhaps when you were on there. Do you think that it would have to change for today's day and age? I think how do I say this? I think people don't want to see people being tore apart on television anymore. I think times have moved on, and people that kind of brutal honesty and kind of like literally people's world falling apart on television, on live television, it makes people feel uncomfortable now, and that's not what people want to see. So and I get that. Like, I think, like, towards the end of it, when they started bringing in all of these 6-chair challenge things and telling somebody that they're through, but sit there for 20 minutes and then we're going to kick you off the chair and send you home, that's not fun. I think back in the day it used to be really fun, and it was about, like so much more than just kind of standing there singing. There was like a fun element to it, and then it got a little bit too, I don't know what the word is for it, but just a bit too brutal, I think. And I think if it came, and social media has changed the way people view things now, I think you can log on
straight on after going on a television program, type your name in and find out instantly what everybody thinks of you in a second. And that's a weird space to be in. You know, when I did the show, Twitter didn't even exist. So we've moved on, I think, and I think if it came back, it would need to be a bit more nice.
Perhaps when it comes to reality TV, what people want to see are the Nadias of this world telling their stories.
100%. Hit the nail on the head.
Joe McElderry, thank you so much for coming on Telly Talks. I've loved your picks. You've chosen some great telly moments. You've been listening to Virgin Radio Pride's Telly Talks. I've been Rod.
And I've been Benji. And we'll see you next time.